I'm certainly glad to see you guys, the global science searchers, the seekers of the unknown, those not afraid to face life as it comes, and those not afraid to take the information to help others with it. I think mine is probably one of the oldest perspectives of the unknown. How much are we loved? The oldest science, the oldest sought question, the oldest and deepest mystery. How much are we loved? How deep is the spiritual commitment made from that world to us in this world? Well, it's unfathomable. And one thing I can guarantee you, as we search the unknown and we face a new world, from the cross in the sky to Nostradamus' predictions, to the true scientific paradigms that are emerging, I think that what becomes the most fabulous part about this paradigm of the new sciences is us. They're only minor and small extensions of the greatness that we are as spiritual beings. We are spiritual. These are everything that we're discovering and exploring, all the deception that has come into our lives, and the fact that we are here together today is we may not know all of the truth, but we know what's been told to us is a lie. We know it. So we come together as family and as seekers to find stable concepts, to look at the new world as we know it is, and to see what's been covered up, see what's been hidden, and to see why. Well, I grew up in all of this, from a Marine all the way till today. There is one thing that I can promise you, that anybody who tells you that you die is a liar. This is something you can base on. If someone tells you that you're going to die, that person is a liar. Then all we have to do is figure out why they're telling us that. Institutions, religions, or governments, they're liars. You will not die. It will not happen. So everything that we have in a fear-based consciousness that puts that forward to us is to deceive us, to manipulate us, or control us. And do you realize that 52% of every decision you make in a day is based on whether I'm going to die for it, or if it threatens me, or if I have some religious concept of guilt that would be applied to it that creates a control concept upon me. 52% of when you make a decision is based on those things. These are control issues. If they can scare us, or they can take a certain consciousness and make us be afraid, they can control us. What I love about coming here is that all walks of life and all ages will break that paradigm and seek the answer. We are not afraid to face death or life. And if you look at our age group, most of us have faced most of life. And we've lived through it, and we've grown from it. I've had a few little kinks up here in my life. I learned about God. You know, I'm from the deep South. You know, everybody goes to hell where I come from. We all burn in hell where I come from. So I grew up looking at religion as a perspective like that. And since I wasn't exactly what you call the best kid you could ever have, I spent a lot of times with them trying to put some kind of guilt trip on me. And so one of the most amazing things that came to me as a child was they sent me to this punishment school that was run by the Baptist church. And so for 3 days, they pounded into me creation and Adam and Eve and guilt and sin and suffering and pain and horror, and if you didn't love God and damnation and the beginning of the world, and I'm probably 8 or 9 years old. I listened to all that. And the next Monday, after 3 days of that, we got on the school bus and we went to the museum. Went to the museum. And when you walked in the museum, there was this Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton. And there was a whole thing on the Paleolithic, pre and post-Paleolithic period. And they got these giant digs, these photographs of all these digs all over the world where they're digging up Brontosaurus and Tyrannosauruses and reptiles from the Paleolithic period 135 million to 250 million years ago. I'm looking at this, and I realized that Baptist minister that was trying to condemn me to burn in damnation said the world was created in 4743 BC. 4743 BC. And the world is 6,000 years old. And I started thinking about Satan and the Antichrist. And a few weeks ago, I was watching Jurassic Park. And I had realized without any question that Steven Spielberg must be the Antichrist. And why? If Satan was so slick, and everything that they were trying to tell me was the absolute truth, as a spiritual, moral, mental, emotional, and physical existence, and the world was only 6,000 years old. Now, who's been sneaking around putting them bones in the ground? Who, if it only could be Satan, and Satan has to be really slick. If he can go back through geology, through carbon dating, uranium depletion, through molecular bonding, through all the studies of geology, through sediment layers, and he can place a skeleton of a damn thing that weighed 200 tons, and he placed them all over the world to trick us into believing the world is not 6,000 years old. Now that confused me for a long time, guys. So guess what? The world is older than 6,000 years. And I don't care what they say. And if you go, you can listen to that fire and brimstone crap all you want, or you can search to look for the length and breadth of the age of you. You are eternal. You are forever. This place that we are here is a job. We choose to come here, and we're chosen to come here. And we come per breath. How do I know this? In 1975, I was struck by lightning. I was declared clinically dead for 28 minutes. I spent 6 days completely paralyzed. I spent 7 months partially paralyzed. It took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself. And I lost about 50 pounds. In the course of that 4 or 5 years of finding myself again, I always make this joke. One day I never believed a bit of what you're sitting in here saying. The next day I was dead, and the day after that I became everything I never believed in. And it's hard to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and disprove the fact that you're there looking in the mirror. And I think that's what so much of science and medicine and religion and institutions have tried to do to us. And then 14 years later, if I didn't get it that time, I had heart failure. I had to have emergency open heart surgery. And then 7 years after that, I collapsed and I had to have brain surgery because I blew subdural hematomas. I had what was called a near-death experience, which is really not what it was. I had a near-life experience. I was closer to being alive than ever before here. And if you guys think that there's no such thing as a near-death experience, you're having one now. This is a near-death experience. That's what this is. You come, you do the job. You do it well, you do it as champions. You explore. You open up your mental, emotional, and spiritual consciousness because you have a job to do. You are not lost, stumbling around. We are in service. The greatest thing that I learned in near-death experience, the first two were almost identical. The first two were almost identical. They had the same methodology, which tomorrow in my lecture, I'll go through each one of them and what I think the significance of them were. The third one was literally completely different from the first two. It had some of the things in it, but it was completely different. And tomorrow I'll explore the third one more than the first two, because I think there is where I'm growing. But remember, guys, if you know that there is going to come a day that you'll take your last breath, and on the other side of this world, when you leave this world, your breath has a certain meaning. It has a certain meaning. And what I believe that meaning is probably one of the most important points that you'll ever learn. In the heavens, like in Genesis, there are heavens, not one. Genesis says heavens. Over there, and I want this whole program, I'm begging this, that as we gather this weekend to search the scientists, the heavens, the new sciences, that we take time to search our own selves. In the heavens, your breath has a word that is defined by. It is called sacred. Every breath that you're breathing for the next 3 or 4 days, and every breath you breathe every day, are sacred. To set apart for worship, to make or declare holy, worthy of reverence or respect. Because we are breathing in and out, trying to grow, trying to be able to be knowledgeable to help our fellow man, try to break down the old ways and see the new. And as these new ways come and the new world emerges, we have a place of security that we can't be deceived. The life you're living is precious, of high cost or worth, affecting divinity, highly esteemed and cherished. I learned these things on that side about this side. And I don't want you to have to go through what I went through to know that your breaths are sacred, set apart for worship, to make or declare holy, worthy of reverence or respect. Because look what you're doing here. You've come to explore, to face it, good or bad. When people come like here, if it was horrible, if I was going to tell you, I wish you'd all go to hell, and I wish hell was where it was, you're still here to face it. That makes you heroes. That makes you to find your self-respect, and that you're not afraid to face what everything else is told, and you're not being sheep and being led. You come to see and to hold a high ground. You come to explore and to know the truth, regardless of what that truth is. And you notice, guys, a lot of stuff we're finding out from a lot of people who are presenting here is we are deceived, betrayed, robbed, condemned, and manipulated by everything, religions, institutions, and governments. But we find companionship here. We find friendship in an area to explore. So there is a part of the unknown that is really known. We are powerful and mighty spiritual beings. We're not poor, pitiful, stupid humans trying to have mystical experiences. We're legendary, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings trying to have human experiences. We're not worth a damn at it yet, but we're here trying. And everything we learned this weekend, and every product in the back, and every piece of information is important to our ability to have a human experience. The better we have and the better knowledge we have to increase our knowledge of the human experience, the greater. But remember this, guys. A day will come when this will wash away, and you will have what's called the panoramic life review. You lift out of your body, you move through a tunnel, you come into a place of light, you're met by loving, creative beings, You're surrounded by light, and you're safely home. And this is the way most of us go. When you do that, you come to a place where you have a life review, like in the Bible, the great book, like in Rosh Hashanah in the Hebrew faith, the Day of Atonement, the day that you make sure your name is in the book. And what that book is that your life will literally pass before you. I'll describe this tomorrow in detail, but now I want to tell you, your life will literally pass before you. You will see it in a 360-degree panorama. You will watch it. You cannot conceive at this moment how brilliant you are. And for somebody who thinks he's a know-it-all, which is me, I didn't realize I was even smarter than that when I died. You know, when you die, you're going to find so many new and amazing things about yourself. So many more things that you're more curious about than you ever were here, because you'll see more. You'll understand more. You'll understand why it worked that way. But in the deepest sense, when you come to a time when your life passes before you, and you see everything you've ever done in 360-degree panorama, you didn't miss how many leaves were on the trees outside of the window when you were 4 days old, what was on the shelves around you, what was in the room, when you were being carried by your mother or your father or your relatives in your first breaths. You know the doctor's name badge. You know everything that was there. This will pass before you. You will watch yourself from a second-person point of view, as if you were your best friend watching you go through it. And what that teaches you this is sympathy. We're taught to be sympathetic toward our friends and toward people who are in trouble. That's crap. If you are sympathetic toward something, that means your psychological and ego perspective puts yourself in a place where you think you're better off than that person you're having sympathy for. And then it's your ego that's relating before it gets to your heart. Empathetic, to be that person before you sympathize. If it is a human being, it needs no sympathy, it needs empathy. Because your nature, anything other than a human being, you can have sympathy for. But if it's a human being, you have empathy for it. Because that's how you learn. Because what's going to happen is literally, after you have this second-person perspective, you're going to become every person that you've ever encountered. You will be every person that you've ever encountered, and you will feel the direct results of your interaction between you and that person. You will be every person. So when you see being nice and courteous and friendly, you're just really doing it to yourself. Angry, frustrating, and problematic, you're doing it to yourself. But here's where the kick comes. There is what's called a judgment system. That judgment system is this. If God couldn't come today, and God sent us, in the life we just reviewed, what difference did God make? This is not religious theory. I know this. If God couldn't come today and God sent us, that in the life we would just review, what difference did God make? So let's set our minds, and as we acquire this knowledge this weekend, our breaths are sacred. Our life is precious. But we're training to be the person that if God couldn't come today and God sent us, the data and information that we're gaining today would be the difference in the life we review that if God wasn't here. That way we become friends. That way we care. That way we empower each other. We strengthen each other. And make sure we smile at each other and we get to know each other. Because all this other stuff is just how it really works as opposed to how we're told it works. And the more we gain in caring, and the more we help other people, the more powerful the true mission of this life is. That is the secret. That if we hold our breaths sacred, we hold our lives precious. That means we hold other people's breaths sacred, and we hold other people's lives precious. And if God couldn't come today and God sent us, we are training to make that difference. with those concepts, with everything we learned, good and bad, we're better able to help the people around us. Now let me bring it home to you. How many people in this room this day have a family member somewhere in the world? Raise your hand. How many people in this room this day have a friend somewhere in the world today? Raise your hand. How many people are in this room? Raise your hand. Okay, to bring everything I said home to you. And in my particular issues is death and the moments before it. The quality and dignity of transition from this world to the next. You have an 81% chance that if you have a relative anywhere in the world today, that relative is going to turn to you in case of terminal illness or traumatic or terminal illness or catastrophic disease. You have an 81% chance that family member is going to turn to you before they turn to a doctor or before they turn to clergy. 81% chance. You have a 61% chance if you have a friend anywhere in this world that that friend is going to turn to you, catastrophic illness or terminal disease, before they turn to a clergy or before they turn to a doctor. And you got a 100% chance you're going to turn to you. So who are we here for? Everybody we love and who loves us. Because if you look at it like that, you're going to pay attention. Because people who you love and who love you are going to depend on you. Because you chose to come here. Because you are the ones who will make the difference. You're the ones who are knowledgeable. You're the ones who know alternative and complementary perspectives. You're the ones who know paradigms about the body and science and about the government and about the good and the bad, so that your suggestions and your ideas can help create a quality of life for those in transition. That is my part in this. Because I've been a hospice volunteer for 24 years. I've been with 172 people breathing their last breaths. I've been with over 270 people in the course of it. I created Compassion in Action, which is a hospice volunteer organization that trains volunteers to deal with these type of sciences and these type of modalities and to incorporate them in medicine. And I'm a primary palliative care provider for veterans. So I have taken these sciences that are fringed, quote unquote, and incorporated them into the VA and are doing studies and research of complementary and alternative and esoteric sciences in the paradigms being studied by the National Institutes for Health Office and Center for Alternative and Complementary Medicine. I don't just sit around and talk about this. I go and do it. So when you take and you gear it toward not just the world and conspiracies and whether there's UFOs and whether there's not, but you bring it home to your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters and your friends, then we have empowered ourselves to learn to be better specialists in helping them go home. There is where you're going to make the difference. There is where no matter what you learn about the horror of the government, the horrors of the things that are going on, the way managed care is and the way medicine is and what's getting ready to happen, there is where you make the difference. And from there you build your strength. My family are safe. I know the way home. I've made the journey myself, and I've helped 170 people go there and helped thousands and thousands and thousands of other people because I recruit hospice volunteers. And Dean and most of you who know me know what I'm doing here. I'm recruiting hospice volunteers. Because if God couldn't come today, and God sent me, in the life I now review, what difference did God make? Where can I make the greatest impact with all the science, all the knowledge, and all the information that I can gain here? When it's my mother, when it's my brother, when it's my sister, when it's my father, and when it's my friend, and they are struggling with transition. And when their family has to turn to somebody to give them comfort and understanding that's not full of a bunch of crap and a bunch of control issues. That's us, everybody. That's me and you. And there is no way to escape this game. There's no way. And so if we are preparing to help our friends and our brothers and our sisters, every piece of knowledge that you gain here helps them. And helps if God couldn't come today and they sent us. We're on the job, we're ready, and we're doing the job. Know that that's a part of the reason you're here today. And know that that is the greatest part of why we're here today. Because we choose to come to know, because they're going to depend on us. They're going to depend on us, and we will be prepared, and we will be ready. And every piece of knowledge and every piece of information that we can get here, and every new friend we can make, makes it stronger. Tomorrow I'll have a list for Compassion in Action, and I have a website, and a whole place you can go and see that I don't just talk this stuff, I live it every day. I live it every day. And instead of being afraid of what we call death, I go stronger. I go stronger. And I think that what will happen is a lot of the sciences and a lot of the things that we're studying now will help us be able to bridge into that world. That world is not very far away from here, and it's no strange long distance. It's close. And if all these sciences are used to bridge and lift that veil, that means that we're here so that we can sense and be close to our loved ones, and they can sense and be close to us. And if we came here for that today, and this is what we're searching for instead of just gathering data, and we have a focal point on it, then when that moment comes and that phone rings, and they said, she's going or he's going, you are ready. You get there quick. You come online strong. You sit and you make the right decisions at the right time, and you make the difference at the right time to help someone leave this world and go safely home, and to help a family prepare and deal with it after they're gone. What better success could we gain from this global science conference this year at the end of a millennium and the dawning of a new one than that skill? I don't know it. You think the government gives a damn about you? They don't give a crap. We got to care about each other. We have to keep exploring. And we have to be ready to make that difference. There's little children coming into this world, breathing the first breath, who got dumped in garbage cans, who are left and abandoned. That the most greatest moment you'll ever have in your life is when you put your finger up and that little baby holds that finger. And that means a heavenly creature from heaven to this earth to serve. You're knowledgeable and able to be there when that child has nothing and no one and lying in a government program or beaten or raped or abused. I bring these sciences and these studies to practical application in everyday life. And I do this every day. And I want what you learn here to empower you to do the same. Because if God couldn't come today, and God sent us, what difference in the world we're living in could God make? And when we look at our opportunities, and we look at what Dean and that lovely wife of his brings us as an opportunity, and what Carolyn and Dennis do, look, guys, it's a golden opportunity that we seize today, that we focus and direct ourselves. We learn diligently. Because if you have a friend or a relative, or you're in this room today, you're the one who will make the difference. No one else. There is no one else you can depend it on or put it off on. So I wish I could tell you that you were going to die. I wish I could tell you you were all going to go to hell. But it's not going to happen. And since you're not going to die, there's something that's really important about forever. So let me tell you what it is. Forever is not near as long as you think it is. It's a lot longer. And if you're going to be alive forever, we got to find something to do. And it might as well be grow, learn, and expand. So today, let our breaths be sacred. Let our search be true. Let there be a preciousness to life, and that we become guardians. That what we gain and what we know gives us guardianship. I give you dominion over all you see. Let it be guardianship. Not to cheat, not to kid someone, not to point our fingers at someone, but to be knowledgeable, to be guardians. And to know, because of this kinds of projects, that when you stand up, you're not alone when you stand up. Because you're going to have to stand up. If it's your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or your friend lying there, and some doctor wants to come do some horrific test because he didn't make his payment on his condo, what are you going to do? You're going to sit down? You're going to say when he sends you out of the room, you're going to go out of the room and let him sit there and do that? You better not. Better not. And when you stand up, we'll be standing up together. That's the power we have. We are not afraid. We are here to learn so we can make the world a better place. And in our time here, in our stewardship here, we are guardians, protectors of it. Not afraid of it, or not to be intimidated by it. But we take the strength as guardian and protectors. Now, Dean told me not to talk so much and to give people time to ask me questions. So in this last 15 minutes, if there's any questions that people would like to ask me that would help better define my lecture tomorrow, which is to explore death and how much fun you're going to have when you die. You're not going to die, and death is a blast. It'll be a thrill to get out of here. And I'll tell you something else, too. You won't think a half a second about ever coming back. You couldn't have gotten me to do it. The first 2 times, nobody asked me if I ever wanted to come back. They sent me back. I now understand why, because someone says, well, Dannion, do you see your relatives and stuff over there? I know you do because of people who I've helped in transition. But to let you know what kind of person I am, I've been over there 3 times and no relatives come to meet me yet. So, you know, you kind of understand what kind of person I am. So, questions? Oh, you can just say it to me on the way, Joanne, while you're going over there. Okay, well, tell me and then I can practice.
Okay, I saw you at the Whole Life Expo, which was 3 days after the Columbine incident.
Uh-huh.
And what you said was really comforting to all of us about the students and the teachers.
Better go over there and... I was trying, you know. Did anybody tell you guys today that they loved you very much? Well, I want to be one of those who tell you that I love you very much. And what I want to explain tomorrow is why I love you so much. Joanne?
Yeah, Dannion, I saw you at the Whole Life Expo in April, which was 3 days after the Columbine incident. And of course, we were all very upset, being human beings. And what you said, because you said you came early, and if you could tell us, again, or the audience, what you told the small group around you was very comforting to all of us.
You tell them what I said.
What I remember you said is that you came about 3 days early to help them go to the light. And what I remember you said is that the students found it very easy to go to the light. And the teacher, Dave Sanders, found it difficult because he had more family there that he was leaving. But if you can, I don't know if you've seen the students or the teachers since then or communicated with them, and if you can just share anything, and also the lesson to be learned from Columbine, what it can teach all of us.
It's prayer in school. I can tell you what will change Columbine. A moral, spiritual value applied to our educational system. I have no problem. I grew up in a place in the South, and you know, you were taught the difference between right and wrong. All the knowledge of man is but foolishness without God, without the true divine spiritual force. Columbine is a typical example. Kids in the time age and peer pressure of high school, you got a bunch of little kids with no identity, you have the power of the internet, and you have athletes and the old in and out between us like we all went through, peer pressure, to find identity. Without a spiritual moral fiber of right and wrong in that, these things are going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to happen. So what I did is I went and looked at Education 2000, and I studied every page of it. I found 4 sections that I could take and use to re-put prayer in school. They won't know it's prayer, but it's under the 32A dash something under service learning. So I've taken a service learning where kids go to nursing homes at the VA, they're planting gardens, and they're helping elderly people, and they're getting credit for it instead of staying after school in what's late time or backup time. These kids are getting credit for going over to nursing homes and being told thank you. If we take these things that they try to control us with and take the high spiritual ground and turn it against them, we will prove that they set out to deceive us, but in the course of that, that's not the reward we're after. It's keeping children from shooting children. I wrote in Saved by the Light, guys, what part of the made Dannion famous. I didn't know these 12 books of knowledge that I was going to write about became the future when I wrote them down. And now you can look up in this book and literally see a guideline of where we are today and where we will go to the year 204. And I wrote them in a way that I thought was simple, but they're still here. Like the Oslo Peace Accord and the Wye River Peace Accord. They're in box 4 and 5, as I described the Middle East. The war will start over water in Israel. And if you look, I've been saying this for 10 years. These things were written down 24 years ago. 24 years ago. If you study the water issue in Israel and Jordan, you will see where we are, and it's close. It'll be over water. But what I told them is this. The children go home safe. They didn't think I'd drop in the bucket. They were gone and home. The teacher had a lot of problems because he was responsible, and he had a wife and children. And he was hanging around because I can see that. I've been over there so often, I'm like a resident. I'm an alien resident. I got my green card for heaven. And so I can live in those dimensions and those worlds. Well, so can you. I mean, there's nothing extraordinary about it. And if this is why we came today, and this is what we spend in the next 4 days for, then surely there are techniques that you can use. And I think the guy who comes after David, which is what Dean said, will give you some ideas about that, and then I'll follow back up on it tomorrow.
Hi, Dannion. I just wanted to tell you I love you very much today.
Love you more.
And I want to also thank you for all that you say about hospice, because I'm a hospice nurse, and it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. My question is, do you have any information from your visions about Y2K?
Sure. It's going to be a blast.
What?
Y2K is in 2 positions. First, is to let us know that the world has a glitch in it. It will be as bad as they allow it to be. It is a controlled mechanism to put FEMA into place. If you look at the Clinton just signed the executive order a week and a half ago that consolidated FEMA and all other agencies under FEMA to give it executive power to seize everything there is. Okay, he signed it a week and a half ago. So they knew years ago this was going to come. But from being around hospitals, I know that every hospital is mandated, especially those under the VA, are mandated to make emergency preparations to exist 7 to 14 days without electricity. I know that. It could go in periodics for 2 years. When you combine the fact that our high-speed communications is done by satellites, the last time we had solar flares of the power and magnitude we're having now is 1989. And between December the 28th and January, I think the 15th of 2001, they are 10,000 times more powerful than in 89. We have 600 more communication satellites up there. So solar flares and Y2K combined, we are ready for a little disturbance. So what it is disruption. disruption. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I think when they shut that power off and they start lying and they start trying to control us, we will see clearly the world as they have tried to create around us. And we will go see what our neighbor's doing next door. And because of electricity, we can go in our house, cut on our TV, shut the door, and not care about our next door neighbor or even know them. But when we're all in it together, we'll pull together as human spiritual beings. And that is the most terrifying thing that can ever happen to governments. And I think it's a good thing. But guys, get you plenty of toilet paper. As soon as I got grip on it, I went and got me 12 cases of fruit cocktail and 2 cases of Beanie Weenies. And I buy me 2 gallons of water every week. But somebody said, is your house Y2K prepared? Well, we moved to South Carolina in 1751. We bought the land in 1757. We built the house in 1804, and I live in it. I've been Y2K compliant since 1804.
Do people who pass on as a result of suicide have a different destiny than people who go involuntarily? And is there a major criteria for the people who don't go to the light?
Well, now that last one is broad-ranging. Suicide. You choose to come here and you're chosen to come here. Suicide has been taught to be the most condemned thing in the world. I do not support euthanasia nor suicide. Not at all. I am not a supporter of either one of those. But you've been taught so much about the fear of suicide from a religious perspective because you have taken control of your destiny. And the church, before they understood mental illness, and before they understood these types of situations, that anyone who would take a way out, whether they were being punished or whether they were being tortured or whether they were mentally ill. A person who leaves this world, suicide, mostly they go in rest. There is a place that they can go, and they stay in that place until they're able to deal with it and able to go back and look at what drove them there. And a lot of times, what you miss most, and what's the most horrendous thing that happens in suicide, is you get a chance, to, when you have your life review, to see the opportunities you missed to be the difference that God makes. Now, that's pretty tough, but you know only the best of the best stay. And there are lots of criteria for not going to the light. Lots of them. Lots of self-induced psychologies, lots of religious context, lots of moral perspectives. We are complex beings. The third near-death experience taught me more than the first two, but it taught me about myself. So tomorrow I'll explore that.
Oh, I was so engrossed I almost forgot my question here. What I wanted to ask you, Dannion, is were you shown a vision in dream state or something about Columbine? Is that why you were there 3 days earlier? Yes. Okay. Well, that's what I thought.
I don't want to put myself, I try so hard not to make myself any different because I am just us. I'm just stupid enough to talk on the telephone and enlightening. And I'm hard-headed enough that they have to kill me every 10 years to get my attention. But, you know, I have some purpose. And that purpose is a lot of times when death or these kinds of things have to have a certain balancing in them, they'll tell me, and I flew in. And I had an idea. I had a really good idea what it was, and I was ready. You know, and you'll be like this. I mean, if we take this focus to empower life and to make it more precious and to make breath more sacred, you will become empowered with what you learn to use that part of you.
I thank you for being you.
I thank you for being you more.
Yes, sir. Joseph Palermo from St. Louis, Missouri.
Hi, Joe.
I have a question for you. I'm sure most of us in the audience are familiar with the program Dreamland, hosted by Art Bell. There was a program several years ago where John Lear was on it, and he made a comment, more of a statement, a very strong statement about the white light and how people are hearing to go to the light. And his statement was, do not go to the light because it's not the thing that we've been told and such. I didn't know if you were familiar with that statement. and what your comments might be on that.
Well, in 5 minutes or less,
Sorry.
do what you want to do. The whole thing that John was going through is that Lucifer was the Lord of light. The angel of light is Lucifer. And if you die and you see that light and you go toward that light, you're being deceived. It's an eclectic combination of what a lot of people talk about the light. So when people tell me about that light and they say don't go to it, you don't really have a choice. Sooner or later you will go to the light. And you can hang out all you want, but you will be going there. And why? It is our destiny to return home. That's the way home. When you see the North Star and you have a sextant and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and it's 1,000 miles in any way to land, what do you close your eyes or do you plot your azimuth to take yourself home? So it's the same thing about don't go to the light and you will stay adrift. But remember, guys, like I told this guy, he said, you're being deceived. That's the devil doing it and making you do that because Lucifer was the Lord of light. I said, well, before I saw that light, I would have blown your brains out. I'd have robbed your house, stole your truck, and tied you down and put enough light on you because I'd have put gasoline on and burnt you. And then I went through this system. And if it's Satan that comes and brings me back to do hospice work, if it's Satan that I support VITA, which is my foundation that raises children, and I have an orphanage in Peru, and we have people here who go there and work in those orphanages. If that's evil that makes me do it, we're not all evil enough. So the light is the power, and that light is in you.
I fully agree, and thank you.
One more question?
Hi, Dannion. From a universal perspective, I realize it shouldn't matter whether I'm personally in my family or nearby affected or not, but I just wondered if you might be willing, and I'm not, I'm happy to say, would you be willing to do a mini dissertation on the use of pot and marijuana with young people?
Well, that's a broad-based perspective because it is not what you do, it's intent. It's not anything that you do, it's why you do it. And if you're a Hopi Indian and you're taking mescaline and you go on your sacred journey and you find how to be a greater defender of your family and find your mystical spiritual tradition, or marijuana, if you have cancer and you're going through chemotherapy and you can smoke a joint and you can eat, then the whole situation changes. It's intent. Everything on this earth is here for us in service to use, abuse, or help others with it. I personally I don't form an opinion about what people do when you're young because you're trying to figure out everything that you're being told and you're going to rebel against what you're going to be told and you're going to explore it for yourself. But when you hit an age of your 20s, then whatever's causing you to have to seek escape is the issue because the intent is to escape from something. And I look at a lot of kids today surfing and a lot of Xers and Yers and realize they don't have a spiritual foundation that most of us had when we were coming up. And it's what we hold on to now. They don't have it. And they're going to explore whatever happens to give them that chance in that moment. But I'm in support. I believe in free will. And I believe that we can be guiders, we can guide people, we can stand beside them, but you can't legislate morality, and you can't legislate what free will gives them. My point about marijuana, I missed most of that in my life because I was too busy wanting to kill somebody. And I figured if that was high, I couldn't get them between the crosshairs and I couldn't blast them. United States Marine Corps. I mean, this is where I grew up. I wanted to be straight so I could get a good, clean shot. So, but when you look at, I had this guy tell me, he was a DEA agent, and he said he was going to cut marijuana off at the source, like he was going to go down to Mexico. And I never ever thought about it till I started thinking about cutting marijuana off at the source. Marijuana is a weed. It grows on every continent in the world. It's a weed in three phylums. So if you're going to cut marijuana off the source, you got to bust God and Mother Nature. Now, can't you see God and Mother Nature assuming the position? It's just a weed that has an active agent in it called the delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol series that was discovered by an Indian tribe that used it in their ceremonies with the peace pipe so that they could find a calm, soothing state because of the endorphin releases of the chemical structure of the body that creates a peptide bond uniting and an endorphin release that took the hostile tribes where they could smoke a little pot, they could chill down and talk it through. So it's intent. It's intent. There are no evils in the world unless we misuse our own ability to understand and use it against someone else. Evil is intent and use thereof. So I hope that in these next 3 or 4 days, we grow more sacred. We grow more precious. We grow more aligned to being able to empower our fellow man and to be there when they need us, because we are the ones who prove we're not afraid. We come to see, face, and hear, and a lot of the stuff we hear here, we don't really want to know it. But we have to, because our families and our friends and people we love depend on us. And I am proud to be here. Thank you. Did anybody tell you today they loved you very much? I took questions.
7 million books and counting. Thank you so much, Dannion, for being here. 10 minutes and be right back here. Now, if you want to have dinner or tonight with one of the speakers, we have 4 of them that are offered. You can buy tickets for that out at the booth, at the registration table. Rodney Stitch, Karen McCoy, you'll hear both of them before the day is over. And Barbara Nicholson and Bob Dratch are up for tonight. And there you can have dinner with them if you want to get a ticket out at the registration table. Be back here in 9 minutes and we go again. Dannion has to leave and run some errands. I wanted to tell you folks so that you know that he will have to leave quite soon and won't be able to talk to a lot of you.